what if Daniel Dubois wins? What if he beats Anthony Joshua? Well, first of all, I hope to God there's no rematch clause, but I'm sure that's being too optimistic. So at the very least, I hope there's not a two-way rematch clause, whereby whoever loses, either man can get an immediate rematch. Because this is a voluntary defense for Daniel Dubois. He's the IBF champion, and it's been standard procedure for decades for champions to have a rematch clause in place, a one-way rematch clause for voluntary defenses. But the challenger's not supposed to get a rematch clause. That's ridiculous. So as I say, at the very least, if there is a rematch clause, let it only be for the champion, not the challenger Anthony Joshua. So let's say Daniel Dubois were to win. I'll talk about the implications for Anthony Joshua's career later on in the video, but as a boxing fan, what would I want to see next if Daniel Dubois were to win? Now I'm going to say something here, which I imagine the vast majority of you are going to disagree with strongly, and that's okay. But if Daniel Dubois were to win, the ideal scenario for me would be that he makes another voluntary defense before May next year against Moses Itauma. Now, some of you know where I'm going with this. Moses Itauma has got a fight scheduled against Marius Wack. If he gets through that, I'd like to see him have a fight that gets him a top 10 ranking with the IBF. And if he can win that, stick him in with Daniel Dubois as a voluntary challenger, or a voluntary defense, should I say, for Dubois' IBF title. The reason that Moses Itauma turned pro when he did at the age of 18 is because he wanted to try and break Mike Tyson's record and become the youngest heavyweight champion in history. That's why he didn't stay amateur and try and get in the Olympics. So this is what he wants. Itauma has sparred a lot with Daniel Dubois. And so, as I say, if Dubois were to beat AJ and Itauma comes through his next two fights, get him in the ring together and let's see if Itauma can do it. Again, that's what he wants to do. But obviously, it seems improbable. Itauma would probably have a better chance going for the WBA regular belt. But how many people would even class that as being a real heavyweight champion and therefore breaking Mike Tyson's record? In fact, many may argue, and understandably so, that there's a better chance of Tyson Fury abandoning his rematch with Alexander Usyk and fighting Daniel Dubois next than there is of Dubois fighting Moses Itauma if Dubois gets past Anthony Joshua next. But as I say, this is just an ideal scenario for me personally, because I like to see records broken. I don't want to see a record last forever. Do you guys want to see the 100 meters record last forever? Whoever still has it, is it Usain Bolt? I'm not sure. Or do you want to see it broken? I want to see it broken, just as I want to see Mike Tyson's record broken. And I personally think Itauma is a prodigy. He's not a normal young heavyweight prospect. He is way beyond where a 19-year-old heavyweight normally would be in terms of development. Way beyond. Now, if it were to go wrong and he went in there and lost to Daniel Dubois, well, he's got all the time in the world to come back from it. He'd be, I think, 20 years old if they fought, let's say, in March or April. He'd be just within the time limit necessary to break Mike Tyson's record. He'd have all the time in the world to come back from a Dubois defeat if he did lose. But if he won, he would go down in history. His legacy, to some extent, would already be cemented because that record would probably then stand for several decades, as Mike Tyson's has already. Anyway, all that stuff aside, what would the implications be for Anthony Joshua's career if he were to lose to Daniel Dubois? I think it depends on the manner of defeat. If he gets blasted out, then you probably have to say it's the end. If it's a really competitive fight and it ends on a controversy or AJ loses a tight decision, then I think he can still go on. The UK boxing industry is still obsessed with Anthony Joshua versus Tyson Fury. And it's a fight I want to see too, but the boxing industry are desperate for that fight to happen for the Undisputed Heavyweight Championship. You see, I'm not. I don't care whether it's for the Undisputed Heavyweight Championship or not. What I care about is that that fight happens when both guys still have something left in the tank. Or at the very least, when both guys have a similar amount left in the tank. Because from where I'm standing right now, and this could change depending on what happens in the Dubois fight, but from where I'm standing right now, it looks like AJ's probably got a bit more in the tank than Tyson Fury because he hasn't taken as much punishment in his career. But judging on the Usyk fight, Fury's still got something, or he at least had something in the Usyk fight. That fight, I'm sure, has taken quite a bit out of him. So I wouldn't have an issue with Fury and AJ fighting each other this year. Let's say Fury decides to abandon the Usyk rematch, AJ beats Dubois, or even if AJ loses to Dubois, as long as he doesn't take too much punishment, AJ versus Fury before the end of the year, I wouldn't grumble. Obviously, it would mean that Fury went back on his word and didn't go through with the Usyk rematch. And of course, he'd get criticism for that. But in terms of the AJ Fury fight, like I say, I want both guys to at least be as good as they can be, at least be as fresh as they can be. And it doesn't need to be for a title. I think the more emphasis people put on AJ Fury fighting for a title against each other, it's almost like they're jinxing the fight. Do you know what I mean? Because you're looking for too perfect a scenario. Now, some people are going to say, I'm looking for too perfect a scenario with Itauma. The difference is we've been wanting this AJ Fury fight for what, a decade? And every time we think we're nearly going to get it, it gets snatched away from us. In situations like that, sometimes you just need to say, you know what will be will be. Sit back and let things unfold how they may. With Moses Itauma, this is his first bite at the cherry, you see? So it's different in that way. With AJ Fury wanting it to be for undisputed, it's almost denialism again. A lot of the, certainly UK boxing industry are in denial about the fact that the best heavyweight in the world is no longer British. It's like they can't accept it. They keep acting like Usyk is some type of blip or aberration that's going to be corrected in the next fight. No, he's not a blip. He's not an aberration. He's the best heavyweight in the world and one of the greatest fighters of all time. Therefore, you have to actually now move forward with the understanding and the acceptance that we may never get Anthony Joshua versus Tyson Fury fighting each other for a title. That may never happen. So rather than focusing on that, be open to them fighting without a title on the line, because that might be the only way we get the fight. Neither one of them is the best heavyweight in the world. Accept it, okay? It doesn't mean that their fights are no longer worth watching. Anyway, that's my take on that. And I said earlier on that there's probably a better chance of Dubois fighting Tyson Fury next than fighting Moses Itauma in his next defense of his IBF title if he beats AJ. And again, that would be either if Tyson Fury abandons the Usyk rematch and fights Dubois, or if he loses to Usyk again, or even if he beats Usyk, because Tyson Fury is a Frank Warren fighter. So surely Warren's going to want to put Fury in there against Dubois. That's probably a more realistic thing. But as I say, in my idealized scenario, I'd want to see Itauma attempt to break Mike Tyson's record against Daniel Dubois. Because again, let's say Dubois beats AJ and there's no rematch clause, hopefully, for AJ that is. And Dubois doesn't get to fight Tyson Fury in his next defense for whatever reason. Who does he fight? A Hrgovic rematch? Martin Bakole? Ajit Kabayel? Zheli Zhang? Joseph Parker? The winner of Andy Ruiz versus Jarrell Miller? Especially if it's Ruiz? Jared Anderson? If he beats Bakole? There's a ton of options for sure for Daniel Dubois, no doubt about it. But I'd be pulling for the least likely of options. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Are you sick and tired of the mainstream mindset? Does the dogmatic conformity and pathological ignorance have you tearing your hair out in frustration? Then don't be alone. Come and join our brotherhood on Patreon. We stand as a beacon of reason against an army of insanity. You'll gain access to my weekly topical podcast, where we take more deep dives than Jacques Cousteau on an endless variety of subjects. There's also videos, interviews, live Q&As, as well as a vast back catalogue of previous episodes, including my popular Confessions of a Nightclub Bouncer series. You can listen via the Patreon app or download in high-quality MP3. Connect with myself and hundreds of other members in our Element chat group. There's no contract, no commitment, you can cancel at any time, and it's cheaper than a Mickey D's McMuffin. Just head to my Patreon page via the link below this video and select the tier called the Brotherhood of Reason. I'll see you over there.